Actually, but he's not on today. Yeah, he wasn't able to make it today. His name is Sam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's Sam. So I'm going to be recording with him tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, but which I kind of want to talk to you about a little bit is
Sure.
coming on uh constantly because I know you're a person that I So let's just start from the beginning, right? I met you
Sure.
back in 2012. No, 13.
Let, let's see. Yeah, I met you first in 2013. Yes.
2013.
Yes.
As most of my viewers know, I used to be a seminarian, so
Mm-hmm.
I met you in that process. Got very close with your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and in the beginning, you and I had different point of views when it came down to Catholicism because I was in the neo catechumenal way, and then
Mm-hmm.
you weren't, and you had so many
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
Which later on you ended up joining the group. Uh,
Sure.
Not sure if you're still in it or not. Uh, and it's clearly I'm not in it, but what's your journey been like?
Sure. So yeah, I was walking up until uh let's see, probably about a year ago, actually. And part of that journey has been because of with getting married and discerning a common spiritual home.
Yeah.
We actually, Daniel and I are actually currently involved with another movement in the church called Jesus Youth. It actually originated from India. It's a charismatic movement. So yeah, we're involved with
Okay. So just so that people can
that.
get to know you, I'm new to the whole podcasting scene,
Sure,
and I'm learning my style of doing things. But like,
sure,
just tell us your background a little bit because I know you, and you may hear my
sure,
kids once in a while. They're still awake. Uh,
sure.
but you know, talk to us about yourself. Who are you? How old are you? What do you do? And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Sure, sure. So, my name is Dan Grisano. I am 36, going to be 37 at the end of this month. By the way, Jose, happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank
Um,
you, thank you.
so, um, I uh, I'm from a family of five, though technically it should be a family of six. Actually, before me, my parents lost one. He
Okay.
was born a little bit too early. His name was Joseph. But yeah, I have two living siblings. Youngest sister Stephanie and a middle sister Jenna. I'm the oldest living. My parents Pat and Dominic. Um, so I born and raised in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. Lived most of my life in New Jersey. Went to college in New Jersey, and then eventually I lived in the Washington, D.C. area because I was serving as a missionary on a college campus. And currently, I serve as the pastoral associate for outreach and ministries at the Church of the Little Flower in Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, as well as I am a volunteer firefighter.
Oh, wow. Firefighter, how'd that
Hmm.
happen?
I mean, the brief of it is that ever since I was very young, God called me. And the reason I can tell you that with certainty is when my mom showed me a picture of like one of my earliest Halloween costumes, what did I want to be? A firefighter. And ever since
Okay.
I was a little kid, the desire never left me. It was just a
Okay.
combination of the life circumstances, not feeling like I had the time. I also felt like, could I do it or not? And then it actually was about actually it was in 2019. It was May of 2019. It was through a couple of series of events where the Lord especially, put the call more on my heart, and I eventually took the jump in, and I'm so happy I did. I'm actually currently in the process of getting on the department here in Berkeley Heights because I was on the one in my previous town in Hasbrook Heights. But since moving here, I had to join a different department, so I'm in the process of getting on the new department.
Oh, that's great. See, I
Yeah,
never pictured you as a firefighter, so I've always
sure.
known Dan, the student.
Sure.
You know,
Sure.
and so it's so different. I mean, I think we've grown so much from the time we last saw each other till now.
Sure.
Um, Especially with me. I mean, my viewers know I have, you know, we stopped walking almost a year ago as well.
Oh, okay.
And so we attend the traditional Latin Mass, which is where the inspiration came to start this podcast.
Okay.
In the sense of kind of, I realized myself that there was different ways of evangelizing,
Mm-hmm.
um, and one of those ways is through actions and the liturgy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to talk so much, which was something I was accustomed to in the Neo Catechism way, right?
Sure.
Go out to the streets, go to the people. Uh, but I guess my wife and I were called in a different way
Mm-hmm.
to kind of evangelize with actions, and so that's where we're at right now. And the reason I bring it up is because you're one of the few people in my life
Mm-hmm.
that um, that have influenced me within my Catholicism, my journey from no faith or little faith to having the faith I have now. Because I was telling my wife actually that you and I used to kind of like go at it, right? Different ways of seeing things, living the faith, um, and I was impressed with the way that you would talk, right? You had
Mm-hmm.
this knowledge of the church that even surpassed the seminarian's knowledge, and I would be struck by it because you knew so much, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw a zeal within you that caused me to look for God more.
Mm.
But of course, I was very stubborn. Well, I'm still stubborn, right? But I'm extremely stubborn. I uh, and the Lord is kind of picking it away, right? As I allow Him to. Um, and the reason I bring this up is because that's one thing I'd like to talk to you about because finding out that you got married, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and remembering you from my seminary years, which date early 2010s to like 2015. Um, you were you were stuck on it, right? We were all trying to get you to become a priest, go to seminary, and we like try to get you to the seminary, and no, you put your foot down. You said no, that's not for me, and you were
Mm-hmm.
so like, and you knew it, and
Mm-hmm.
which a little bit of envy comes in, right? Because as a seminarian, you're like, whoa, man, like, does God want being in a seminary? We still doubted, and
Mm-hmm.
but you were so you had your foot down, and you knew
Mm-hmm.
what you wanted. So, like, can you tell me a bit of that journey? From people always nagging, telling you,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you need to go to the seminary, do something with your life, go on dates, do this, do that. And you really just going with what God wanted. I see in you kind of, uh, in a way, the stubbornness of Jacob, right? The prophet. Uh, like he was just stubborn and wanted his way one way or another, but he knew deep inside that the Lord wanted him for something. And
Mm-hmm.
so, can you tell me a bit about that?
Sure, Jose. I mean, each of us has to respond to where the Lord calls us,
Mm,
and the Lord gives us different graces and allows different experiences in our life, and His will for us is different, and I think what happened is, people saw that yes, I have this missionary heart, this zeal, this blessing of intellectual knowledge of faith, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm called to be a priest,
yeah,
because sometimes we have this mentality that that's all that could be oriented, toward. That's all that could mean. But I knew that's not where the Lord was calling me to, and I think it comes down to is that I didn't feel what I've heard described as like that internal calling to the priesthood. I have great respect for priests and admiration to for that priest friends. Well, obviously, I work with priests at the parish, but I didn't feel that internal calling, meaning that I feel called to do this. Not that I respect or admire, um, this calling. And even also a priest one time even put it to me in this way. He says, you feel like it's called a ministry, but you feel more of the calling to the sacramental ministry, which is the essence of the priestly ministry, or do you feel more of a calling to the preaching of the word, which is, I would say, that kind of falls a little bit more along the lines of what I do now. It's the ministry of the word, and also of service and administration, different things along those lines. So I knew the Lord was calling me to serve the church, but not as a priest. And then
Hmm.
in terms of the calling to marriage, there's various things along the way, Jose, of how I felt that call to marriage. I think the short of it is that um, a lot of times when I would go to weddings of beautiful Catholic couples, the Lord would speak to me, you know, through their witness, through the homilies, at those masses, and the Lord just kept on just drawing my heart, towards marriage, and yeah, just that call kept on just kind of drawing me forward, and I kept on continuing, even though Jose, and even still to this day, and sometimes it's just like how long I had to wait, for this to be fulfilled, to get married,
Yeah.
because you know this this journey starts back in probably 2011 or so, because what happened was I was serving as a missionary. My teammates said, you really need to, take more seriously discerning your vocation. So he said, start with discerning religious life. So I went on a discernment weekend with the Dominicans. Beautiful order. I still love them today, but didn't really feel this calling. Then I started dating. Um, so from that time of feeling like I want to pursue marriage until getting married in 2023, it's a long time, 12 years. 12
Mm.
years, of being in the desert at times, of searching, of seeking, I was in a previous, relationship, which was a train wreck, you know, um, and yeah, being rejected, and uh, really feeling like this was like a somewhere over the rainbow,
Yeah.
idea. And then one day, in the Lord's timing, I met my beloved Danielle, and things, progressed, and eventually we did get married. And even that was not been a smooth journey. We could talk more about that, but yeah, it just it's basically, I felt like this call from the Lord, and He kept on moving me forward with that.
And that's something that I can kind of relate to, right? Because leaving the seminary, I being dumb, right? I got into a relationship that was terrible,
Mm-hmm.
terrible, filled with sin, left and
Okay,
right. And I do apologize if I do sound a bit stuffy.
that's okay.
Allergies
I'm.
are killing me.
Oh, geez.
Don't
Okay.
move, don't move down to Texas. uh, and so it was filled with sin, right? I was still blinded by my ego, right? The selfishness uh that pretty much pushed me to just pursue what I wanted instead of what God wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I began to, we began to sin, and I began to get blinded.
Mm-hmm.
The Eucharist wouldn't fulfill me. Nothing godly would fulfill me. And that's when I
Mm-hmm.
first experimented or experienced what the desert truly was without God. Because
Mm.
it's true what they say, right? Sin blocks everything
Mm-hmm.
from God. So the
Mm-hmm.
deeper you get into sin, the worse that you begin to feel, and the more
Mm-hmm.
blind you get. And so I began to notice that, where's God? Where's God in things, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
until one day he granted me the grace to open my eyes and to really just let go of that relationship, which I did, right? I abandoned
Mm-hmm.
myself to God's will. And it's funny, about maybe 3 months later, after breaking up with her, my wife comes to Dallas. Well, goes to Dallas because I live in Houston, right? She goes to Dallas because of Hurricane Harvey hitting Houston. She
Mm-hmm.
evacuated to Dallas,
Mm.
and my Cinderella story started there. Uh, I knew from the moment I saw her, something in me, whether I mean, you can call it cliche or whatever, right? But I experienced something that I've never experienced, which was a
Mm.
certainty of God's will at that moment.
Wow.
If it wasn't for that moment where I knew she was the one, and although my wife thinks it's a fairy tale, every time I tell a story, she's like, "Oh, he's lying. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
happen." Uh, it's unbelievable. But whenever God, and it's funny because I'm a religion teacher at a Catholic school.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you're working. Okay.
And all the kids, they always ask me, how do you
Mm-hmm.
know when someone's for you? And my answer is always, you just know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
God gives you different graces. Not everyone, experiences the love at first sight. Some
Mm-hmm.
people had to build it. Some people had to really just go out all the time. For example, my wife needed to go out on dates with me several
Mm-hmm.
times before she was like, okay, this guy can lead a family,
Mm.
will protect me. And me, I was like, the moment I saw her and I said, no, she's the one. Like, this is the one God
Mm.
wants for me. That's my
Sure.
wife.
Sure.
Um, I already knew. I didn't have to see how she was,
Mm-hmm.
how did she act with people, how was
Mm-hmm.
she with her family. Like, that moment for me was enough.
Sure.
And so, getting to know her, of course, I was able to experience something different with her as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we can also touch on that later because our first year of marriage was a disaster.
Wow.
Uh, and that's not so much because it wasn't God's will; it was just human desire. Anyways, we'll get into that later.
Okay.
But I kind of want to get into your love story because I know your love story may be a little different. Mine was
Sure.
love at first sight, concretely. What was yours? How did you know that Danielle is your future wife?
Sure. So, we actually met in 2020 of all the years to meet. Um, so, the
COVID.
pandemic hit. The pandemic hit. Also, I guess a little interconnected with the fire department because I joined the fire department. The pandemic hits. Obviously, it's a painful time. Very uncertain. Honestly, I thought maybe this might be the end of my life. I for the first time I really thought about like well Lord, maybe I'm not going to live to be much older. And at a time like that, you're not necessarily thinking about dating. You know, um, but eventually, I did make peace of like like Lord, I'm going to be on this mission with you for as long as you will. And eventually, through conversation with my mom and my sister, I was a little more open. So I did put myself out there on Catholic Match, and before I met Danielle, I met this woman. I think her name was Tanya, and we chatted and we had good conversations, things like that. But things weren't really clicking. We're just kind of be friends. But it was like kind of her that kind of at least opened me up to even in this drastic time to dating. And then it was interesting because it was right before I think I even met Danielle online. My mom was like kind of asked me like kind of where are you going with your life? Are you too afraid to put yourself out there? And then lo and behold, I'm on Catholic Match and I see Danielle's picture and I'm just like, wow, who is this? And then I read her profile and I just remember being blown away, just about all that she wrote about, and I was just like, wow, who is this woman? I really have to get to know her. And it really was an experience of grace because um, I was really just drawn to her, and I really experienced uh, this desire to want to get to know her. And even though there maybe would have been some hesitations, um, also on some things that she had written in her profile, I also felt like this deeper grace of, you know what, I need to get to know her, you know.
Yeah.
So we messaged each other, we started clicking really well. We had our first Zoom date, which I remember afterwards, I telling my dad, Dominic, that's the best first date I've ever had. So I just that was probably the first indication, and I think I even told him at that time I was like maybe she might be the one. And so then we met in person for a walk in a park a couple weeks later. Then we actually eventually were doing long distance and in the pandemic, which was doubly challenging, but also beautiful because it invited us to have a lot more spirit of adventure. We saw a lot of the state of Connecticut because I was like kind of she was living in Massachusetts at the time with New Jersey, so having to find different places to meet up and obviously having to be creative across the miles. So like doing things like connecting through music. We had a playlist, or we started something called the Code Journal, which was an opportunity to share and record all the experiences of grace that we were experiencing and insights we were having. And I just saw how much joy and how much action of God was present. So journey continues, and along the way, I mean, I was definitely struggling with my own anxieties. But eventually, through the help of some counseling and some other, things kind of aligning, I eventually, took the leap to propose to Danielle. I mean, I think it really came down to like, saw a couple of signs kind of lining up, as well as also just things were naturally, kind of moving in that direction, and I just felt like a piece about it. So, I did propose in February of 2022, and yeah, we got engaged. It was a beautiful, experience, joyful, and things like that. So we're continuing to start to prepare for marriage. Um, but over time, my now wife was experiencing a lot of doubts and anxieties, some related to just woundings, that she carries. Unfortunately, her parents got divorced, and that experience, it stays with you, because the model you see of marriage is one in which people don't stay together for life.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of wrestling, a lot of anxiety, a lot of struggles. So eventually, we actually had to come to the difficult decision in August of 22 to actually postpone our wedding. Originally, we were going to get married on the feast of John Paul II, October 22nd of 22, but we decided we needed to postpone. So we decided to say, okay, we're going to take at least 6 months. We went to marriage counseling. I went to individual counseling. She went to individual counseling. The accompaniment of friends, prayer, all of that, and was a very challenging time. But we definitely grew a lot through that, especially in terms of a lot of our human formation skills, learning how to deal with some of these past wounds and how to communicate better. Um, and then, praise God, in January of 23, um, basically, there was an opportunity that presented itself where I was able to kind of challenge Danielle on some of the different fears and doubts that she had. And she answered with this confidence that even surprised her. So it caused us to say, you know what, like, yes, the Lord is confirming this. Then we kind of got back on track. And um, yeah, then we just got married this past September, the feast of Padre Pio, September 23rd
Oh
of
wow,
23.
what a feast!
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
So,
beautiful
yeah,
feast. It's
yes.
and I'm glad you're talking about that because I feel that a lot of people think that marriage, or at least the process to marriage, it's all party, flowers, beautiful, no
Sure.
problems at all. It all happens
Mm-hmm.
after. Um, and it's not like that. And it's a good
Sure.
segue for us to make it to kind of what marriage is like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I'm pretty sure your first year is it's going great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my first year wasn't the best, which is something I'd like to talk about because
Sure.
I want people to see the different views. Right,
Sure.
when you don't have God and you lie
Mm-hmm.
to yourself that you do have God,
Mm-hmm.
it makes things very difficult.
Mm.
Um, it's something that I had to experience myself.
Mm.
Uh, so our first year wasn't the the famous phrase, right? The honeymoon phase. It was
Mm-hmm.
nothing honeymoon. Yeah, we traveled,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't. It was pretty bad. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
physical. We got physical with each other. It's I really didn't want to break who I was. Um, I didn't want to break that mold of what I thought a man is or
Mm-hmm.
was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and she also didn't want to break the mold of really just being a submissive wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had a different interpretation of it. It was just so bad. I mean, what like it was all in our minds though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we would constantly tell each other, oh, but we want God, we believe in God, we do this, but then we were doing
Mm-hmm.
things totally different,
Mm-hmm.
total opposite of what we truly believed. And it's like, because of that, honestly, it was our fault, right?
Mm.
I can blame anyone I want. I can blame a group within the church, but honestly, it's none of that. It was really us, you know.
Mm.
So within our internal struggle, we encountered this solitude within our marriage where she felt lonely, I felt lonely, and
Mm-hmm.
so God kind of had to move the waters, move the
Mm-hmm.
dirt within that water,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can find the gold underneath.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to go to Dallas, and the
Mm-hmm.
viewers know this because I've spoken about this experience. Right, we had to go to Dallas. where we were, although the families were there for us, we still felt lonely. And so within that loneliness, God began to rebuild. Okay.
Mm.
Because we moved to Dallas because I was looking for the money, right? I got a good
Mm-hmm.
teaching opportunity there, starting salary at 61,000, which is pretty good
Wow.
here in Texas. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go there. We're gonna make good
Mm-hmm.
money. We'll be good. We're not gonna struggle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was making good money and still struggling, and
Mm.
it didn't fit in my mind. I was making good money
Mm-hmm.
and still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So one day, and once again, the viewers know this, right? I went to a low mass,
Mm-hmm.
and changed my whole entire life.
Wow.
That's when I began to notice that the Eucharist, it has to be an essential and the most important thing in our life. Of course, and you know me, right? Seminarian, having mass every single day,
Mm-hmm.
the Eucharist on Saturday night, that
Mm-hmm.
being exposed to it, I never truly believed that was a presence of Jesus Christ. Okay?
Really?
I never
Wow.
believed it. Yeah, I would tell
Wow.
myself, and this is where the lies, I convinced
Wow.
myself because I heard it all the time. I would
Mm-hmm.
just repeat it to myself to the point of believing.
Wow. Wow.
So whenever I had that experience at the low mass,
Mm-hmm.
my wife began to notice that I was happy, which was strange. I'm not sure if you've ever been to a low mass, but it's quiet.
No, I've been to maybe one time. I know I've been to the high mass before, but I don't know if I've been to a low mass before. Maybe one
Oh,
time.
it's something. It's strange because it's quiet,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's quiet. I once heard an Italian Catholic podcaster who said, "Silence is the language of love within the Eucharist."
Beautiful.
And so that's something that I took to heart because exactly what he said is what I experienced in the low mass, where you don't hear anything but the priest in the altar service.
Mm-hmm.
You don't participate. You don't do anything but go up and receive.
Mm-hmm.
I right then and there, I felt the presence of God, and and then I went for like 2 weeks. 2 weeks after, that's when it hit me. The host was lifted up, and I felt right then and there that this is the presence of Jesus Christ.
Wow.
And so that changed my whole entire life, right? I truly began to believe the Catholic faith. Although I would defend it back then, I was defending blindly because I did not believe it.
Wow.
I knew it, but I didn't believe it in my heart. So then here comes this change, and I began to truly put the doctrine into practice, right? Bringing the Catholic faith into my household, which was, you wouldn't see that in my household. You would see some icons, some religious icons on the wall, but other than that, you would not see faith. You would walk in and not feel faith, anything, nothing. And so I began to incorporate things in the family, but my wife began to see a happiness within me. And she was shook, right? Because this dude is actually doing certain things that he wouldn't normally do. Not because I was doing it because I wanted to, but something just began to. I was born again. The famous born again.
Sure.
And something in me was born again, and this time I have the desire to help, the desire to be romantic, the desire to help my wife, the desire to be a better dad, a better husband. And so she began to notice that. And that's when when she told me once, we were in the kitchen, she's like, I want to experience what you're experiencing. Because she was also going through her own things differently. And so she finally went with me to a low mass, to a sung mass, which was a rocky situation for her. It wasn't the best experience because I left her alone in the chapel, and it's totally different than what we're used to, right?
Sure.
And so, but she did have an experience because she veiled, and the veil changed her life. The reason she goes now is because she had that experience with the veil. Her experience was, I felt too worthy of being there.
Mm-hmm.
Those were her words, and which shocked me, right? Because someone who didn't have a good experience wouldn't say something so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
She said the veil made her feel worthy,
Wow.
and she felt that she wasn't worthy, and so I was shook. I was shocked by it. Well, maybe a month. No, I want to say about 2-3 weeks later, she by herself began to ask me, "Are we gonna go back?"
Mm.
And of course, I had already told her, this is the path I want to take the family down. So
Mm.
uh, I'm not forcing you. I'm gonna bring it
Mm-hmm.
in. I'm gonna bring the faith into the family, but you don't have to live it the same way I do.
Mm-hmm.
We each have different spiritualities, and the
Sure.
way that I describe it is, you have the Carmelites and the Franciscans, both Catholic orders
Sure.
have different spiritualities within them,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what I had told her, and so she wanted to go. I didn't force her or anything, and so the reason I tell you that little story is because uh, I feel that a lot of Catholic men have this idea on how it should be. Like there's this
Mm-hmm.
standard on how it has to be. When
Mm-hmm.
in reality, it doesn't have to be the standard. It has to be unique. The Lord acts in different ways with different
Mm-hmm.
people. The way you're living your marriage is not the way I was living my marriage,
Sure.
but our end goal is the same: to bring
Mm-hmm.
our families to God,
Sure.
right? And so, uh, I've been reading so many books. Scott Hahn is just
Mm-hmm.
blowing my mind away. I'm still reading one of his, which I have fear, uh, Lamb Supper,
Yeah,
and
that's a
that.
powerful book.
Oh wow! I just began reading it. I just started
Mm-hmm.
like 2-3 days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and wow, it blew my mind because
Mm-hmm.
now I know why it is important to have the mass
Mm-hmm.
as a priority and obligation for your
Mm-hmm.
family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and that's how we're living it. We're living as if we're living the mass every single time as if it was something new to us, and that enriches our marriage more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, I guess my question to you after going on for like ever, uh, how do you live your marriage within our faith, right? I live it more traditional. How do you live it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jose. So, I mean, the Lord is, we try to strive to have the Lord be a center of our marriage. He's the one who brought us together, and it's especially our shared, faith, but our shared discipleship, which really has, brought us and sustained us. Um, it's a it's a place of connection and unity, um, ever since the early days. But now as a married couple, a couple of things that we do, to keep the Lord at the center is, um, we take time to pray together, in the evenings, which actually, the blessing of working at a parish, and actually it's, we can really walk there, but it's a little quicker to drive. We can go there in the evenings to go pray before the Blessed Sacrament. So
Hmm.
we get into the habit of trying to pray at least for half an hour, each evening, together before the Blessed Sacrament, and then also, closing our day in conversational prayer. We actually recently finished up a marriage course, and they actually, part of that was giving just an outline of a way to kind of pray together as a couple. So we're trying to also use that. But in the past, we would just kind of pray from our hearts, whatever is on them, whatever's been going on today, praying together about that. Another way that, yeah, we live out our faith is, we do this thing called a weekly check-in, which is something regarding how our marriage is going. But I've also instituted as a part of that, some time of family formation. And even though it's just Danielle and I, we are a family.
Yeah.
Already. That's something we learned from our marriage preparation. That on the day we got married, a new family was formed, and God willing, in the future will be children coming forward from that. But we're already a family. We're already the Grassano family. So we do some family formation. We're reading a book actually, on spousal prayer, very powerful. It's by, Deacon Keating. I'm forgetting his first name, but a powerful book. Read a little bit, sharing, um, a little bit, about what does it mean for us, and then also, reflecting on how we can have a sense of mission that week. Where is the Lord calling us to reach out to others? How is He calling us to be hospitable to others? Because we really believe that the Lord has called us to be on mission together, and that we are better together being on
Yeah.
mission. So discerning about that. And then also I mentioned earlier at the outset, we're involved with a movement in the church called Jesus Youth. It's approved by the church. And we have a weekly small group. And basically what we do is we come together to kind of share about our week, have some time of praise and worship. And then we do Lectio Divina, usually about the upcoming Sunday Gospel, share, and then have some time of intercession. And then also there's some other like formational opportunities as part of being involved with that movement, such as there's a monthly prayer breakfast, which is, some fellowship, but also mass and, communal aspect of growing together as young people. And what else? And oh yeah, we've been to like a national conference with them. And then, just other opportunities. We're blessed to have actually a Dominican a convent not too far away. So we actually try to go and go pray with those sisters. We just there yesterday. They have evening prayer that's open to the public in the context of Eucharistic adoration, and just other kinds of opportunities to grow in our faith. This weekend we went to a wonderful lecture by actually a convert to Catholicism. He's in the army, and he's done a lot of reflections on what our Catholic tradition says about leadership. So yeah, just all kinds of ways to kind of continue to be formed, to continue to grow, and yeah, just continue on the journey together.
Oh wow! So you're pretty busy.
Yeah, busy, but hopefully about the right things, and about ultimately we do these things also because this is where we receive life. Jose,
Yeah.
I even though I don't walk in the way, I'll be very grateful for many of the experiences I've had there. And one of the pieces of wisdom I feel like I did gain from them was that, true life comes from the Lord, and
Yeah.
that by seeking all these experiences, it's not just about being busy or being quote unquote religious. It's about this is where I see that life comes from,
Yeah.
and that if I'm not seeking life from the Lord in all these different means, I'm trying to seek life somewhere else, and that ultimately cannot satisfy.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. That's something that I tell people. So many things that we've learned in the way, because of course, different experience, right? We grew up in the way, so
Sure,
it's more present than
sure,
not.
sure.
Uh, and man, so many things we picked up there that we are truly grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Just like scrutatio, um, certain things, that we learned there. Don't have TVs in the rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Just have the TV in the living room, and then
Mm-hmm.
we have a little one in the kitchen, but that's while she's cooking or whatever.
Sure, sure.
But outside of that, it's like none in the rooms. We've learned a lot of things from there too, and that's something that I don't want people to get wrong, right? I honestly like appreciate everything the way it had done for us,
Sure.
helped us see, right? Uh, but I'm impressed actually. You you touched on something.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer has to be present within the marriage, the matrimony,
Mm-hmm.
because
Sure.
without it, how do we seek God, right?
Mm.
Uh, Saint Augustine actually says something in his Confessions to start
Mm-hmm.
out with, right, where he
Mm-hmm.
says, "One is supposed to pray to you to get to know you, but
Mm-hmm.
how is one going to know you that don't pray to you? But how
Mm.
is one supposed to pray if they don't know how to pray?"
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that along those lines, right? I kind of
Sure,
summarized it myself,
sure.
but he says something so beautiful starting his Confessions,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, how do we know that we are praying enough? Because sometimes we can pray a lot
Mm-hmm.
and not get anything out of it, or not
Mm-hmm.
pray the right way, or nothing. I mean, and within the marriage, one thing I've noticed that's helped us, and I've never taken this seriously. I'll be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, the rosary.
Mm-hmm.
I never took it seriously. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought that the rosary did something. I
Mm-hmm.
prayed it because a lot of people would tell me to pray it because it did something,
Mm-hmm.
and if something happened, I wouldn't really attribute it to the prayer of the rosary.
Mm-hmm.
So for us now, there's been a change. The
Mm-hmm.
rosary has become one of the major things that we do in the household. Because we've seen that it does have miraculous powers, right?
Wow.
In other words, right? Now I don't want to use pagan words, miraculous power, but it does have a power, and the importance of that is important within the marriage. And you said something. You do it together.
Yeah.
A lot of couples now in this society, they want to do things separately, right? And now that I have kids, I see it more. All I hear, and this is something I'm happy getting to be around my wife's sisters. They're also married. The oldest one has, oh man, hopefully I don't get it wrong. I think 5.
Wow.
I think 5, and well 6, but one's in heaven. I hope I'm right. I think it's 5.
Sure. Okay.
And then the one that's after her, she just gave birth, right? But one thing that I adore and I admire from them, especially the oldest one, having 5 kids, she pretty much goes everywhere with them, everywhere, and that's how my wife and I are with our kids. You know, we try to spend family time together as much as possible, because right now they're kids, but when they're teenagers, they're not going to want to be with us. Let's be honest.
Sure.
So nowadays, no one wants to do anything together. You know, the husband, let me go get my guy's day out over here every whatever, every day, or the wife here. They barely spend time together, and if they do, you know, it's a short moments. It's short lived. But when the kids, the thing that I've noticed more, because I'm more into like the kids, I've seen, especially seen the kids at Catholic school, right? Where their parents do not spend time with them. You know, they always leave them, or they just give them everything they want and then leave them to, you know, babysitter or the grandma, or they'll leave them somewhere, and they never spend time together. So, prayer is highly important, in my opinion, right? Within the family unit, right?
Sure.
You mentioned you are a family with Danielle. Yeah, you just formed your family. How important is that prayer? Like, is it something that you maintain as a priority, or is it, if it fits in my schedule, I pray?
No, it's a priority. I'm saying it's a priority because, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's just that true life comes from the Lord, and that I mean, there's many things I could say. I mean, vine in the branches. You know, without me, you can do nothing. You know, um, my relationship with the Lord is foundational to my life. Without Him, I would be lost. I mean, the brief of my testimony is that, I was kind of lost in my life, and the Lord found me, and through developing a real friendship with Him is what gave my life a joy, a hope, an excitement, a zeal that I never experienced. So this friendship with Him is essential. My prayer life, yeah, is a priority. And praying together is a priority. Yeah, I mean, yes, sometimes things do get in the way, whatever, or it can be challenging with different circumstances. But overall, especially also, I feel like as a spiritual leader of our household, is like that I do work on inviting us to prioritize prayer, or saying, like, okay, we're going to take time to, pray, now, or just making sure that that's important, or whenever we can, going to daily mass together. I always try to go to daily mass at least on my own, but when we can, try to go together. So even sometimes if we're traveling, like the plan, like, okay, where can we, go to mass together, or talking about, when can we go to confession, together. So being a spiritual leader, I think, is very important.
Yeah, and also to add to that, the heavenly experience, at least from our marriage, experiencing heaven on earth through the mass. That's the main thing. I never really truly, honestly, truly, truly ever thought heaven really came down during mass, right? And having that experience now and truly experiencing it, you know something, you are a person, and I say it honestly, because yeah, I do want to grow this podcast, right? I really want to grow it because I feel that God wants something with me and this podcast and my family and my wife, because my wife and I, we have a podcast together too.
Oh, you do? Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we
nice.
do. It's for couples actually.
Oh, okay.
So you know, I feel that God has something with this
Mm-hmm.
podcast, and I want to be as open because I feel people can tell when I'm lying, even through video.
Mm-hmm.
And you're one of the people that I constantly talk about, not in a negative way, in a good way. Uh,
That'd be
uh,
funny.
and
You gotta clean
you're
the cup with me.
exactly right. Here, let me take this chance. Um, but you have always been, ever since I left the seminary, you have
Uh-huh.
been an inspiration to me.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yeah, you have. Believe it or not.
Humble.
You've been. I speak up. I think I've spoken to Danae about you several times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just have this zeal for the faith. You've taught me a lot. You
Wow.
know, because
Humble.
at
Praise God.
first I remember I remember the first thing that I thought about you, not in a negative way, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just in my mind, for some reason I thought being religious was bad.
Mm-hmm.
But and so when I first met you, the first day I met you, I was like, man, this dude's too religious. He's too religious. Like, that's not going to get him anywhere. But little by little, you know, God began to humble me.
Mm-hmm.
And now I am that person that I would criticize, right? Oh, they're too religious. But then I'm like, wait a minute. Being religious is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be religious than going out to do drugs
Mm-hmm.
and then go to church and say I'm holy. You know,
Sure.
I rather be religious and get, actually, if I'm gonna get persecuted, let me be persecuted because I'm religious and
Mm-hmm.
because I'm striving to be holy every single day, instead
Mm-hmm.
of excuse my language, right? But instead of half-assing something and getting
Sure.
persecuted
Mm-hmm.
and not really defend something. So
Mm-hmm.
you've been one of the people who I've been trying to get on this podcast for that reason.
Oh, wow.
Because I like I'm telling you, you just inspire me, you know, to be more holy. Like I see, I
Wow.
mean, I see your posts, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
man, Dan is a guy that all guys need to have as a friend.
Wow. Well,
Uh,
praise God. Praise God. This is if you see anything good in me, it's the Lord's grace in me and His mercy. So, thank you. I'm very humbled, Jose. I'm
oh,
very humbled.
and I'm actually, and I tell you wholeheartedly, I'm glad to have you and to be able to call you a friend.
Well, thank you, Jose.
Um, because, and this is something I was talking to Sam about, my co-host.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the Catholic men need other Catholic men, you
Amen.
know,
Amen.
because we can't do things alone. You know,
Sure.
sometimes we need that support. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
our wives are our support,
Sure.
but
Sure.
at the end of the day, they are women. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they have a different mindset than what we do. You know, they have
Mm-hmm.
a sensual feeling to
Mm-hmm.
things, and we have more of aggressiveness, more toughness
Mm-hmm.
into things, more
Mm-hmm.
discipline to things.
Sure.
And so having Catholic men, and by men I mean you, uh, it it just helps another man
Mm-hmm.
find God. You know, we need to help each other to God instead of always competing. I have a friend who constantly competes with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't want to compete. I just want to talk. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to you. I want to bring you to Christ, and I want you to bring me to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but no competing. I don't want to compete with you. I
Mm-hmm.
truly want God to be a part of the relationship. And so, how do you find those friendships? What would you tell? I mean, I'm lucky that God has granted me the opportunities to meet people like you. You know, people
Mm-hmm.
I still talk to. You know, you, and you know, several others. But uh, of without offending anyone, of faith, those who believe in God,
Mm-hmm.
you, and I can count. And another one that I truly, honestly love, and you know, and I don't want to want them to think I take them for granted, is
Mm-hmm.
actually my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law's husband.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Max, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
another guy I look up to
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, amongst all the turmoils that life throws at him, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and all the hurdles he has to jump,
Mm-hmm.
uh, with 5 kids, you
Mm-hmm.
know, having lost one,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, he's still there. And not
Mm-hmm.
only is he there, but he's a man of faith, someone who
Mm.
brings Christ to his kids,
Sure.
you know? And it's like, that's what we need in life. That's, those are the examples. And in this Christmas, I wrote a card, for Christmas, right? And I told him in the card that I see him like a big brother,
Mm.
you know? Being the firstborn, we don't have that opportunity of having an older
Sure.
sibling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like he is that brother that I've always wanted, someone to
Sure.
kind of I look up to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I'm gonna do things my way, but
Sure.
still
Sure.
having that person to look up to and be like, okay, this is how you do it. You know, this is
Sure.
how you look for God. This is how you bring Christ
Mm-hmm.
into my marriage.
Sure.
This is how you act with your kids. Of course, you have to discern with your kids, right? Because each kid is different, but
Sure. Sure.
you discern that way. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to see that fruition of faith within your life. I see,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I know you intimately, right? We were in the same community in a way,
Sure.
and I've seen that change in you
Mm-hmm.
that inspires me. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
I see something I don't see every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sure, I hear people talk about money, the new truck, the new house, the new this, the da 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 da.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all I see is people stuck there. You know, I mean,
Mm.
thank God it's not a lot of people that I know, right, that talk like that.
Sure. Sure.
But people that I hear around me always talk about the
Mm-hmm.
material, always the
Sure.
material.
Sure.
But I never hear God being praised or spoken about God.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that a lot of it is because either one, they're afraid to talk about God because they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be humiliated,
Mm.
or they just don't believe, right?
Mm.
And I'm grateful for the family that God has granted me with, on my wife's side and on my side, because even
Mm-hmm.
my brother and my sister's husband, that the guy is fearful of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I'm grateful that my sister has found a man who fears the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who has that fear. And then on my wife's side, I'm grateful to have found uh, these two men
Mm-hmm.
who God allowed me to see, at least uh, the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
I met him before and after he actually began to take church seriously,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a grace. That's a gift
Sure.
to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then seeing the older one, Max, right? The youngest one, his name is Juan.
Mm-hmm.
The older one, his name is Max. And seeing Max and seeing that faith
Mm-hmm.
honestly pushes me to become a better man.
Mm.
But you, my man, you inspire me to truly, truly move closer to God.
Wow.
And I had to realize that while my reversion to the faith was
Mm-hmm.
happening, you know, uh, seeing you and everything just motivated me all the more. Uh, but enough of the enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I truly am happy that you came on here, and I think here on the podcast, I'd like to offer you something.
Sure.
Uh, I've had this feeling of the ministry of this podcasting. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I know I've applied to Catholic radio stations for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
for a while. I think I've applied already 4 times to the same one.
Oh wow. Okay.
They still don't get me. So,
Mm-hmm.
but now that I work at a Catholic school, I feel that God
Mm-hmm.
is doing something. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I feel my mission is to kind of help men and help families kind of come out of their shell
Mm-hmm.
and bring through YouTube and through Spotify to
Mm-hmm.
bring, you know, the faith.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of you many
Mm-hmm.
times and I just didn't know how to bring it up. But I think being here on the podcast, live, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
to offer you to see what do you think about joining Sam and I. At first, this is mainly a traditional podcast, okay, traditional
Mm-hmm.
Catholic podcast, but I also need someone who would like to join the show to help us reach more people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to talk, someone who knows about the faith, who can defend the faith, uh, and to just talk.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, current events in the church, what's going on, different movements, like the one you're in, the group you're
Mm-hmm.
in. That's
Mm-hmm.
great. I feel that people can be saved through that as well.
Sure.
uh, we don't know how much we need something until we try it. The reason I'm doing this, and I may get backlash from certain people because of course some people take the traditional sense to a radical form, right?
Sure.
The Novus Ordo is invalid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not that, right? I'm just a
Sure.
traditional guy who
Mm-hmm.
goes to traditional mass and
Sure.
believes in the traditional way of living.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that the church has allowed certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a good there. Okay.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And having someone from with a different point of view can help.
Sure.
Uh, and so that's just, I mean, it's for you to think about. If you'd like to jump on, just let me know. And we'll find dates to do it. We'll talk about current events.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be way later. You don't have to answer right now. Think about it,
Sure.
pray on it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said at first, I thought the podcast was just going to be a podcast,
Mm-hmm.
but I felt a mission come as soon as I started it,
Mm-hmm.
because I started it as a pagan podcast just to help men, and little by
Mm-hmm.
little, God kind of inspired me to talk more about Him, and
Mm.
so now I don't see it as a podcast; I see it as a ministry.
Wow.
Uh,
Beautiful.
so, which is why I have a podcast with my wife, which we try,
Mm-hmm.
but having kids is so hard.
Sure. Sure.
But I do have a podcast with her. I have a
Mm-hmm.
podcast which hopefully you jump on
Mm-hmm.
uh, with Sam, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
be recording tomorrow, me and him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really, really, really want to start other things. I have big plans, and
Mm-hmm.
I just learning, right?
Sure.
So with that, uh, anything else you'd like to say?
Sure. Sure. Well, I was very, very honored and humbled, and yeah, maybe we can talk a little more offline about, about that. But to going back to something else you were speaking about, Jose, which I think is very important, is that we need examples of other men that inspire us, that challenge us, that model of what it means to be a Catholic man.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, Jose, and really, this is, again, praise God, and really, it's his work. So, obviously, I just got married, and what's one of the traditional things guys do before you get married? You have a bachelor party. Obviously, the tradition about that is raucousness and whatever, but that's not who I am. So I felt this inspiration, and you won't be surprised when I tell you what we did. I had a bachelor retreat weekend. So
Oh.
what we did is we went away to the Poconos. We rented a place, and it was a bachelor retreat weekend because we did fun things. We did whitewater rafting and hiking and, just throwing out and music and cooking, all that kind of stuff. So it was fun. But also, it had a theme to it. It was about what does it mean to be a man? And there were different
Wow.
guys giving reflections on different aspects of being a man and experiences that were meaningful. We had some time of sharing, afterwards, after each of the talks. And really, praise God, I really can't believe about how well it went. It went better than I could have imagined. And what's also incredible, too, is yes, most guys on the trip were Catholic, and a couple guys were. This one guy is a non-Catholic Christian, but there were a couple guys who are not even Christian, secular, but they got a lot out of it. It was really a grace-filled weekend, of brotherhood and sharing and growing and being inspired, and I really saw it as like a rite of passage to start this transition from um, being a bachelor, to being a husband. I really one day being a father. So that was a grace filled experience. And then actually something else, Jose, I will actually put something as an invitation to you. Something I'm actually doing with one of my groomsmen, who was a friend of mine from my time as a missionary. We're actually trying to resurrect a men's group that we had been in effect before COVID, and unfortunately kind of died out. And we're trying to get it going, and I think this most recent iteration, I'm hoping, will be fruitful. Um, it was called Viri Christi and Men of Christ, and what we're doing for Lent this year is we're reading through a book, or actually it's daily reflections. It's called Born of Fire. It's by one of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, and it's reflections for men for Lent. Actually, each day there's a reflection. We're gathering each Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, just for half an hour. Trying to keep it short, but basically end the day with your brothers. Opportunity just to share about what you've been receiving and just be real with each other, and to support and encourage one another. Because one of the things I felt like was missing is that experience of that masculine brotherhood and that encouragement, and also, like, as my friend Mark, he's a little ahead of me in life. He has 3 kids now. He just sees a lot of other guys who are struggling so much. They're
Yeah.
drowning because of work situations, kids, stress, and things like that. They need to be encouraged. Like they're really they're floundering. And they just need to come together with some brothers to be encouraged, be supported. And for some fuel for the journey. So that's something we're starting actually this Thursday. I'm really excited about.
Okay.
So far, we're probably gonna have at least 10 guys, but sometimes guys, they don't necessarily respond, but hopefully they'll be even more coming out. So I'm really excited about that happening, something low key, but really an opportunity to grow as brothers in Christ.
Oh yeah, that's something. It's funny you bring that up because I've been. That's what I've been trying to do.
Okay.
I've been trying to
Okay.
come up with something for men,
Okay.
right? So something I left out earlier is because I've been repeating it a lot. Is I had an encounter of suicide.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I went to land mass, that's the first thing that I went to land mass already having planned what I was gonna do,
Oh
and
jeez.
so yeah, it was bad. It was super bad.
Wow.
But that's God has His plans, right? I needed to experience something like that in
Wow.
order for me to truly discover His love, and so
Jeez.
I knew that men were going through the same thing, and as men, we don't talk about it,
Sure.
and so that's where the whole ministry truly started taking off, and that's where I wanted to help men because us men. And something beautiful that my wife loves about the land mass, and I do too, is the fact that men actually take their role as men seriously, as husbands seriously, as fathers seriously. So you'll see men carrying their kids, and it's something that we weren't used to, right? Because we rarely saw the guys carry the kids. You always saw the mom carrying the kids, taking them to the babysitter, or doing this, doing that, and the guy would maybe once or twice get up, but besides that, it was always the mom.
Sure. Sure.
Not to blame that the dads didn't want to, or maybe the wife told them not to, or whatever the case may be, but
Sure.
you see it more freely in the traditional land mass, and so that's something that's why I defend the traditional land mass with my whole being, because of course it saved my life,
Wow.
literally saved my
It's
life,
incredible.
and I see a value, and I feel it's misunderstood so many times. I hear people talk about it, and they're just misunderstood, right?
Sure.
And sadly, just in Austin, I think this Sunday at 7:30 at night, I think it was the bishop or the pastor of the cathedral, I forgot who it was. They used to have land mass there, but at 7:30 announced no more land mass there, so it's been cut off. But anyways, I defend it wholeheartedly because of that, right? And just how you said it, men need other men to kind of help them come out of that shell, because a lot of times we feel misunderstood. No one understands us, or the way society puts it, women need to rule 100%. No one understands women, and so they push men to the side. No one understands. No one really cares about the men. Men get everything in the world. They're the ones who are the bosses and make all the money. And women, we don't get anything. But you go to a section anywhere, a Walmart, a Target, a Kmart, or whatever, the biggest section is a women's section. And the guy section is the tiniest thing, which is just an example of the so many things that women have that and men just stick to the minimum. Uh, uh, and something that just to kind of defend my point, in the traditional Latin Mass, in the baptism, at the end of the baptisms, which are always individual, there's a chance, if you want, it's optional, for the woman to get the churching of the woman, right? Which is pretty much the woman in the traditional Latin Mass, and it should happen in the normal way of doing things, but we've lost the sense of baptism. A lot of us have, right? Where we plan out the baptism months later, right? For whatever reason. But in the traditional Mass, a lot of times in the parishes, they want you to tell them a month before the woman gives birth, so that they can place you as soon as possible, like maybe a week or days after you give birth, to baptize the baby. And after the baptism of the baby, something called churching of the women, where the mom is pretty much, I don't want to say invited, but she's welcomed. There you go. She's welcomed back to the church after having given birth. Something very beautiful. And then there's a consecration of the whole family with the newborn baby to the Virgin Mary.
Wow.
Which is something so beautiful. But I bring that point up because women also have an important part within the church, you know, and society is making it seem as if no, they don't have a place in church. But men, because of that, because of what society is doing, they're pushing men further and further deeper down a hole, to the point that men have to become women, right? You know, transgenderism. And so, and it's funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. Some guy was like, "Man, men are better at being women than women themselves," and I laugh at it because it's like, it shouldn't be like that at all. You know, we have a role. We balance each other out.
Sure.
You know, and so, but men are just being, you know, just being thrown into that hole, and it's getting deeper and deeper. And us men, and this is where, and with this, I'll finish my point, right? But we are becoming very lonely. Lonely. And we have no escape, because as men, if we don't have God, we're not going to find happiness anywhere. Because if we are the head of our household, how can we lead our family? And this is when I had my experience with the whole thoughts, right? With the suicidal thoughts. Thank God they were just thoughts, right? Although it was planned, thank God a day before I went to the land mass, right? But when I was going through those thoughts, that's one thing that was going through my mind, right? How can I lead a family if I don't truly 100% believe? You know, and once I began to believe, that's when I felt that my mission was being accomplished. You know, and so it's like, men without God, at the end of the day, if they don't see their final goal as God, we honestly will never be happy. We can bring money to our family, we can bring good things to our family, material things, but we will always feel empty.
Sure.
Because our vocation is to lead. I mean, Adam and Eve, right?
Sure.
We're made to rule the earth and guide it.
Sure.
But with him. But then once we broke it and the original sin comes in, we wanted to do things selfishly. But how many times has this selfishness led us to bad decisions, destroying families? But it always comes down to the man, right? Why does a woman leave a man? Because you don't pay enough attention to me. But then if I pay a lot of attention to you and I don't really work, what's going to happen? We're going to lose something. We're not going to have enough money. I need to do overtime. There's a pressure on the man. And I like what you said, right? Men need a voice, you know, to talk to each other, have that encouragement with other men, you know.
Sure.
Am I the richest man on earth? I'm not. Do I have good equipment for podcasting? I don't. Do I have like good clothing? No, I still have the clothes I've been wearing for the past like 3 years. But like I told my wife today, it's funny. Right before I got on, we ate dinner, and I told her, I said, you know what? I don't have riches. We don't have riches. The house is half empty because we don't have a lot. Little by little, right? We're getting stuff, and I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life.
That's awesome.
The
Praise God.
happiest, and it's because of God.
Mm.
Because I finally have found meaning to my life
Wow.
through God.
Wow. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's
And
really
I'm glad. It's funny because my birthday's on Our Lady of Lourdes, right?
Yeah,
the day. And
Sure.
I never realized how important she was to me. I've always liked her. I knew the story until I found out that her story fell on my birthday.
Yeah.
Her day fell on my birthday, and still didn't find any importance to it because I was never truly one of those devotees to the Virgin until now. And it's like, wow, like being a man who I still have a long ways to have faith, but I have enough at least to use that to fight, right? And there's so much more I can tell you. I just don't want to stretch it out too long because I can talk for hours. You know that. But I'm glad I was able to talk to you, to speak to
Likewise.
you. And I'd like to kind of. Is it free?
Is what free?
The thing you're doing on Thursday?
Yep, it's free. It just, I mean, we invite you to get the book from Amazon. It's, maybe $15 or $20. Other than that, yeah, it's free. Yeah, I'll send you the. If actually, you know what you do, Jose, is just send me your email, and I'll send you the link.
Perfect.
To everything. Yeah.
Awesome. And you know what? I'm inspired to do something. I'm not sure if you heard the podcast with Eddie Maduano, a Knight of Columbus from California.
Oh, nice.
He makes rosaries.
Okay.
I'm going to see if he can, and I'll help him out, right? To see if he can send you a rosary.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
He sent me a rosary, which I usually have on me, but I'm wearing shorts, so.
Okay.
A very beautiful rosary, and honestly, that's been my weapon. It's been my weapon. I've been killing a lot of demons with that.
Nice.
So I'm gonna see if he can send you a rosary with the mission of evangelizing. I feel you're doing a great job. Live the way you're living because you do inspire me, and I know you inspire a lot of people.
Wow.
And hopefully I can have you back on for another part 2. And not only part 2, but hopefully for the rest of this ministry. Pray on it, see what you come up with. Like I've said, I have a lot of ideas, but God has given me the grace to be patient and not impulsive. So I'm holding back on those ideas. I have ideas that I'd love to do for men. And one of those ideas is to actually go on retreats as men. So pray on it. See what the Lord inspires in you. If you'd like to jump on here with me and Sam and I, let me know whenever you feel that confirmation. And I hope to speak to you soon. Once again, I do thank you very much for coming on. It actually lasted longer than what I thought. And I know we can go on forever. But I have school tomorrow.
Yeah, no.
I have school tomorrow, and I have to help my wife with the kids. And
of course.
And but yeah, so thank you very much, and I do ask for prayers.
Of course, Jose.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's be in touch, Jose. Definitely. And hopefully, maybe I'll see you can come to this men's group, and we'll be in touch going forward.
Perfect. Well, God bless, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good, Jose.